Greetings and good morning to all my fellow UU friends, and thank you for joining me this morning. My name is Steve Baker, and most of you know me. I'd like to wish you a happy 4th of July weekend, and you know what? I really miss seeing everyone. I've been coming into the church every day and making sure they don't break in and steal our hymnals or anything, and everything is good here at the church. I'm sitting here with Melissa Rosenquist, and we are recording this morning's service 2 days ago on July 3rd. And I would like to take this opportunity to thank Melissa for her time and for her professional work that she's been doing for our church during the pandemic. Also, a big thank you to Debbie Zill. Hi, Debbie, for your help as the service leader. So about a year ago, up on the podium over here, I did a presentation on Eckhart Tolle's groundbreaking book, The Power of Now. And since then, some of the church members have asked if I had read Eckhart's second book, The New Earth. I'm going to show it to you here. I did read this book, and I would like to speak on it today. Interestingly, this book has been expanded into a global web series with Oprah Winfrey. I'd like to show you a picture of that. You can access these Eckhart Tolle and Winfrey webcasts. Just Google on YouTube. New Earth, a New Earth. So they've been taking questions and answers from around the world about questions concerning spirituality and life and etc. It's a fascinating watch, really. There are some redundancies of material between The Power of Now and this book, obviously. But if you are like me and you can't remember things all that well, as you used to, I think it's okay. I hope it's okay with you that to refresh some of this past material that I did last year. So how are we all doing in these difficult times? What things keep us sane or make us not so sane? What spiritual nuggets do we look for comfort with all the uncertainties of life? I do believe that some people are born with the ability to just get along easily in the world. People like this fellow. Some of you might remember him. What, me worry? Alfred E. Neuman. And although he is fictionalized, I believe that I have met folks like Alfred Neuman, where ignorance is kind of like bliss. And on the opposite end of the scale, I think I've met people who were kind of born enlightened. But for most of us, life can be very challenging and painful at times. Indeed, the first of the Four Noble Truths that the Buddha spoke after his enlightenment was that suffering exists. Indeed, it is a part of the human condition. Eckhart Tolle spent a good bit of time in this book analyzing the role of the human ego. What is the ego? What does it do? Many of us, when we hear the word ego, think of... So we had some technical difficulties there. We have a thunderstorm rolling through. It's about 2 o'clock in the afternoon here on Friday. Anyway, so I'm going to start over there a little bit. Eckhart Tolle spent a good bit of time in the book talking about the role of the human ego. What is the ego? What does it do? Many of us, when we hear the term ego, we think of Sigmund Freud or people who see themselves as more important and superior to others, or people who can't seem to talk about anything but themselves, and we say, wow, that person's got a huge ego. But according to Eckhart Tolle, the role of the ego in our lives runs much deeper than that. The ego, Tolle contends, is part of ourselves that identifies with the mind's thoughts of which we are constantly being barraged with. It is the conglomeration of daily, repeating mental and emotional patterns like me and my story, me versus the world, my past and future, myself alone, disrespected and unappreciated, and so on and so on. Tolle says that the human ego controls us because we identify with the physical world and we live in the past and the future, and that we allow our thoughts to define us. He contends that much of this kind of ego-dominant existence brings human beings much unhappiness through doubt, insecurity, anxiety, anger, fear, desire, etc., etc. Essentially, we could become imprisoned in our own personality. Now you may think, or your ego may think, I'm uncomfortable with this kind of self-examination. Our egos, as Tolle often characterizes them, are like a devilish being within us that wants to always be in charge and doesn't like to be questioned or challenged. The ego may say, Tolle doesn't know what he's talking about. What more is there besides me and my story, me and my life? Nothing. But according to Tolle and many others, there is plenty more. And right here is where most great spiritual teachers and many of the world's religions agree that we human beings need to learn is to live in the present moment. I don't have time for that, the ego may tell us. I'll think about that later. The ego doesn't like the present because it can't really be in charge when we are present. But it is through learning presence that we find out that there is much more to our existence than the thoughts that we think and the world of form. How then does this work? Tolle defines presence as consciousness without thought. Let me repeat. Consciousness without thought. It might be a hard concept to wrap our heads around, but don't think about it. That just makes it another thought object. Just feel present, he would say. So when, in the course of daily living in the 21st century, humans experience this concept, how? Well, here are a couple of ideas that came out of the book. Stop occasionally in your day and notice your breath. Stop occasionally and feel your heart beating. Your fingers may be tingling. The life energy in your body. Sit quietly and meditate. Listen to the beauty of silence. Ironically, it is also believed that in sudden crisis situations like a car accident or a fire or something like that, people often become suddenly very present and react perfectly without thought because there wasn't time for thought. Has this ever happened to you? For Tolle and other spiritual teachers, experiencing a state of presence is a glimpse into our true selves, to our unique inner essence, to our soul. Tolle says that after we have some brief experiences with presence, we begin to put a little space between our thinking mind and our true selves. For example, instead of thinking, I am anxious, we might think, I am having anxious thoughts. When we do this, now we're getting somewhere. We just separate our true selves. We just separated our true selves from the thinking mind. And we created a little gap there, a little space. Instead of believing our thoughts, we start to observe them like an outsider, or more rightly, like an insider. We can actually notice when the ego is in play. We might even smile and say to ourselves, I can handle this. I will take a few deep breaths and observe this feeling until it dissipates. The theory goes that when we practice observing our mind, instead of identifying it with it, those little gaps of presence will start to happen more automatically and more often. We become more resilient to our problems and more confident. We become more compassionate, understanding, and helpful to others. We can accept that everything in life is impermanent and that we can't control things. And that's okay. We accept that life has always will have difficulties, and that is okay. We are now on the path to more happiness and perhaps enlightenment. Lastly, many of these same spirituality concepts appeared in the Power of Now, but what makes the new earth a little different is that Tolle takes things a bit further. He makes the case for our actions influencing a shift in universal consciousness. That while we develop our own spiritual power, we actually improve the energy in the evolving universe. He quotes, "All things, from microbes to humans to galaxies, are not separate entities, but form an interconnected universal energy or consciousness." He says that this is our true life's purpose, to connect to the all, heal our world, and create the new earth. Hey folks, thanks very much for listening. Remember that I am not the example of a spiritually advanced person. I am, as they say in Zen, just a beginner. However, if you have questions or comments, stay tuned and let me know what you think. All my love and best wishes to each and every one of you. Namaste.